Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely pumped to jump into this with you today because we're going to bring some serious energy to demystifying the wild, microscopic world of emerging viruses. We hear all these buzzwords thrown around in the news all the time, right? Outbreaks, reservoirs, vectors. Well, today we're going to break the whole shebang down step by step. We're going to look at the very real biological rules these viruses follow, and honestly, more importantly, the specific human actions that kind of just invite them right into our lives. But before we get into all those microscopic rules, let's start with a pretty stark reality check. If you're wondering why understanding viral spillovers matters to every single one of us, well, the answer is right in front of us. By April 2023, the COVID-19 pandemic caused over 6.8 million deaths worldwide. It's almost hard to wrap your head around a number that big. This isn't just abstract science. This is a force that can literally bring the entire modern globe to a standstill. Understanding how these viruses emerge in the first place is our crucial first step in preventing the next major global event. So, to do that, here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The threat of emerging viruses. 2. Human drivers of spillover. 3. Fighting mosquitoes with tires. 4. 4 rules of viral interaction. And 5. Tracking the Nipah virus. We're going to trace these outbreaks logically, all the way from the environmental causes right down to the microscopic rules of engagement.
All right, let's jump straight into part 1, the threat of emerging viruses, defining the unseen enemies. It's absolutely vital to contrast what we call emerging viruses with re-emerging viruses, because they really pose totally different challenges. Emerging viruses are the pathogens causing outbreaks of completely previously unknown diseases. Think of them as the total surprises. Re-emerging viruses, on the other hand, well, they're the known enemies. These are diseases we thought we actually had a handle on, but suddenly they're reappearing after a big decline, or they're rapidly increasing their range. They just show this really stubborn persistence that we can't easily control.
So the crucial point here, and really the underlying thread for almost all of these threats, is defining the word zoonotic. Zoonotic. It's the crossover phenomenon responsible for most emerging and re-emerging outbreaks today. Simply put, these are infectious diseases that spread between animals and people. The virus originates in an animal host, sometimes just quietly circulating without causing any harm at all, and then, under the exact right conditions, boom, it jumps the barrier.
We have this whole menagerie of wildlife and domestic animals out there. Bats, pigs, birds, ticks, and their microscopic world directly funnels into the human population. The animal world and the human world are inextricably connected by these microscopic bridges. And when that bridge is crossed by a virus, that is exactly what we call a spillover.
Which brings us to Section 2, Human Drivers of Spillover, How Our Actions Invite Infection. What's really wild here is looking at the catalysts. Viruses don't just, wake up and decide to attack humans out of nowhere. Human behavior acts as the ultimate ecological catalyst for these viral crossovers. And we can see a stark contrast here that captures the sheer scale of the problem. Massive environmental actions like severe deforestation in the Amazon literally push wildlife and the viruses they carry out of the wild and straight into our backyards. But on a micro scale, just a discarded, water-filled tire sitting in the grass creates the absolute perfect localized breeding ground for disease vectors like mosquitoes. Both of these actions, the massive and the totally mundane, invite infection.
And it gets trickier. As the overall global climate shifts, we're accidentally expanding the territories of these vectors. Predictive models for the coming decades show expanding habitats for Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus mosquitoes under different climate scenarios. As temperatures rise and weather patterns change, these insects, which carry nasty diseases like dengue, Zika, and yellow fever, can suddenly survive in completely new latitudes. We're essentially rolling out the red carpet and bringing tropical threats much, much closer to our own neighborhoods.
Okay, moving on to Section 3, Fighting Mosquitoes with Tires, the Ovillanta Trap.
Here's some good news for a change. If our actions can cause the problem, we also have the incredible ingenuity to solve it. And sometimes, the best way to fight back is to use the very trash that these vectors love so much. Check out the Ovillanta. It's a clever, super low-cost mosquito trap designed by a joint Canadian, Mexican, and Guatemalan research team studying vector-borne diseases in Central America. Instead of expensive, high-tech lab gear, they turned to used car tires. The brilliance here is just in its simplicity. Ovi means egg, and lanta is Spanish for tire. Step 1, you just repurpose an old tire. Step 2, add water to perfectly mimic those dark, stagnant breeding sites that Aedes mosquitoes love. Step 3, once the mosquitoes lay their eggs on a little strip of paper placed inside, you easily collect them. And Step 4, you destroy them. During their study, researchers found this simple Ovillanta trap was actually far more effective than standard traps. It allowed the team to collect and destroy thousands of Aedes eggs every single month. It's just a fantastic example of using localized, practical science to cut off a spillover right at the source.
Next up, Section 4. 4 Rules of Viral Interaction. The biology of a spillover.
So, we've seen the environmental setup, but what actually happens when a virus makes the jump? Let's zoom in microscopically and look at the biological rules of engagement when a virus finally meets a brand new host. According to the biology of spillovers, there are basically 4 general types of interactions. A host can be resistant, completely blocking the infection. The interaction can be evolving, which is unstable and unpredictable, ranging from totally benign to completely deadly. It can be stable, where the virus is maintained in the ecosystem, or it can be a dead end. These 4 specific categories totally dictate the severity and the survival of both the virus and the host population.
Let's look really closely at 2 of these by contrasting a stable interaction against a dead-end interaction. In a stable interaction, both the host and the virus survive and reproduce. The virus is maintained. It might cause disease, sure, but it doesn't wipe out its home. A dead-end interaction, though, that's a one-way passage. We see this frequently in zoonotic infections, where the transmission in the new host just cannot be sustained. It makes very little contribution to the natural spread of the virus, but it usually results in devastatingly high mortality for the new host. It's literally a biological dead end, but a terrifying one. This brutally contrasts our 2 concepts in the real world. Smallpox was a horrifying disease, yes, but biologically, it was a stable virus whose sole natural host was humans. It survived by keeping the human chain of transmission going. On the flip side, the tragic 2014 Africa Ebola outbreak shows us a zoonotic dead end. The virus spills over from an animal reservoir, burns incredibly intensely and lethally through a localized population, and then dies out, simply because it kills its host so quickly it can't maintain a permanent foothold.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5. Tracking the Nipah virus, an ecological whodunit. Let's tie all these large ecological concepts and biological rules to a relatable, real-world case study. We're going to look at the ultimate butterfly effect in action. And I want you to actively think about this surprising question for a second. How exactly does a fruit bat, just minding its own business up in a tree, cause a massive, deadly human outbreak? To find out, we have to unravel the devastating 1998 Nipah virus outbreak in Malaysia. Here's the sequence of events, and man, it really shows how fragile our separation from nature actually is. Step 1. The natural reservoir. A flying fox bat is just eating a mango in the trees. But because bats are notoriously messy eaters, Step 2 happens. It drops a piece of half-eaten, saliva-contaminated fruit directly into a pig pen located right below those trees. Step 3. The pigs eat that contaminated fruit and become infected. And finally, humans who either eat those pigs or interact with their respiratory secretions and saliva become infected themselves. A single dropped mango created a fatal chain reaction leading to severe human respiratory and neurological disease, and the fatality rate? An absolutely staggering figure of up to 90%. No way around it. That is terrifying. So what should you really take away from this explainer today? It's that viral spillovers are not random acts of bad luck. Viruses simply follow strict biological rules. They look for hosts, they look for stability. But it is human actions, our agricultural practices, our deforestation, our global travel, our discarded tires, that set the game board. We're the ones building the bridges that allow these zoonotic diseases to cross over.
I'm leaving you with this to ponder. Based on the massive, microscopic interconnectedness we've seen today, how will our changing environment dictate the next global threat? As we continue to reshape the planet, what seemingly harmless human action, like, tossing out an old tire or building a pig pen under a fruit tree, what will trigger the next great spillover? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious and keep asking the big questions.